What if we can positively impact society by reshaping the mindsets of young men? And while we're at it, let me ask you, what does it mean to be a man? My name is Dennis Meralda, a father, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, and a principal with over 2 decades of experience shaping the minds and characters of young men across the United States. If these questions resonate, if you're a young man looking to improve your life or a parent looking for tools to help your son become the best version of himself, the Building Men Podcast was created for you. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Building Men Podcast, or welcome back if you have been here before. Today, I am honored to be joined by Lawrence Harris. He is a youth speaker. He helps teens and young adults believe in themselves, think differently about their future, and really make better choices. He faced a lot of challenges as he was growing up, navigating life with autism, childhood abuse, and significant amount of PTSD, and those experiences shaped how Lawrence sees the world today and ultimately led him into starting motivational speaking. And he works with young people, which is obviously our avatar here in Building Men. In the past 5 years, he's spoken to thousands of students through school assemblies, workshops. He's written some books. He has a podcast, online events. He's just an absolute savage of a human being. So please welcome Lawrence Harris to the Building Men Podcast. What is up, my man?
Thank you. That was a beautiful intro.
You got it, dude. You wrote most of it, so I wanted to just honor you in just acknowledging the work that you're doing. One of the biggest things for me is when people can turn their pain into purpose, right? They take things that have gone wrong or been challenging in their life and take that and use it to help others become better. So what I'd love to do is get in the DeLorean, go back in time with Marty and Doc, and I'd love to hear your backstory. Tell us a little bit about your early life and some of the challenges that you faced, and how those challenges really shaped the man that you are today.
Well, as a kid, as most children are, I was this little imaginative little guy. But I was always really different. When everyone else wanted to go watch cartoons or
Mm,
something, my thing was National Geographic.
mm,
I loved that stuff. I would watch just the science documentaries, and I was really into that kind of stuff. But most children aren't. So I had a hard time finding friends, and in my head, I thought that if you're nice to people, they'll want to be your friend. 5 year
mm,
old Lawrence, that made perfect
mm,
sense to me. The unfortunate thing, though, was because I was so different from everyone around me, I got bullied a lot. And I couldn't understand why. Like this idea of I'm being nice to people, but they're being mean to
mm,
me. It just didn't make any sense. And as time went on, I did begin to find people who I could be friends with,
mm.
but I was 11 at the time. So my social skills were pretty underdeveloped there, simply because I didn't know how to make friends. And when I was 12 years old, my dad started becoming abusive to me and
Mm,
my younger siblings. Being the oldest, I took on this protective role of I just wanted to make sure that they were okay,
mm,
even if it meant me not being okay. So trying to balance high school, trying to balance just life, trying to balance everything going on at home, and then the stress of trying to figure out, okay, we've explained to the cop what's going on, but they're not doing anything. We've explained to the courts
mm.
what's going on, they're not doing anything. And we weren't trying to get any criminal charges pressed or anything. It wasn't that. It would just get the kids out the house and let
Yeah,
them
you
live
want to
with
be a
mom.
safe environment, right?
Yeah, it was simply that.
Mm,
So as the years went on, I got to this point of just being so completely stressed out of my mind. Like my face was drooping. I easily looked like 28 when I was
mm.
13. And thankfully, my mom got me into therapy and I actually did the work. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun to look deep into all of
Yeah.
that. And
How old were you when your mom got you into therapy?
she got me in when I was 12. So she
Okay.
got me in like,
Yeah.
because she saw this overnight
Mm,
switch in me. It was like before he was this happy, just bouncing off the wall kid. Now he is extremely isolating himself from everyone around him because I didn't trust anybody, which thankfully, my therapist was able to let me know exactly what was going on. It was called complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
It's kind of like walking around with, it's like a balloon, and the world is nails. Everything was setting me off.
Mm.
So I had to learn how to manage my emotions and trust people again. Because when the people that you believe are supposed to be there for you are the ones hurting you,
Mm.
you lose trust in
Yeah.
everyone. You start to paint everybody with the same brush. The good news was that because I knew what was going on, I was able to start getting better. And through everything I learned in therapy and all the work I had to do personally and figure out on my own, I got to this point of realizing that I can do something about this. So I started going to the gym. I started journaling, meditation,
Mm.
going for walks outside, um, any and everything that I could research and find that could help. I tried it. And once I saw improvement with myself, I started looking around at the world and seeing there's so many people who, even if they didn't go through what I did, they're stressed out, they're angry, they're frustrated,
Mm.
they feel bad about themselves. And I didn't have it all figured out when I was 15, but I said, I know something.
Mm.
So I just started making TikToks and YouTube videos, and one thing led to another. People would say, "Hey, can you come like speak at my church about this stuff? Can you like come to the library?" So I did.
Yeah.
Found out that this is a career. So I started emailing schools and organizations, and now I'm living a life where I get to turn what I went through into a story of triumph and helping other people to believe in themselves.
I love that. And one of the things, as you were talking in Building Men, not only do we have character pillars that we address, we also have healthy habits, 12 healthy habits. I'll definitely get into that a little bit deeper, but basically, what you just said is kind of a commercial for what I'm doing as well in schools. There's just so much power in the consistency of stacking those wins and daily habits. Real
Yep.
quick though, I wanted to just it young men that I'm working with, there's definitely a stigma around therapy, not only for men but for boys, right? And it's almost like you feel like you're broken or there's something wrong with you. I know my brother died a year and a half ago, and after he passed, if I didn't talk to a therapist, I don't know where I would be at this moment, right? So
Yeah.
what would you say to young men who are like, you know what, I'm not going to go see a therapist. That means you're crazy or there's something wrong with you. What would you say to kind of help them understand the power in going to speak with someone?
I would say that, and this is speaking from experience, if you don't talk about it, it's going to get worse.
Mm.
And as much as our family and our friends and guidance counselors and teachers and just people in general can help as much as they can, there are certain things that they don't know because they're not clinically trained in that. It's sort of like you go to a doctor to make sure that the infection doesn't get worse.
Mm.
You you take your car to get maintenance, but to make sure the engine doesn't explode. And there's also the fact that men are kind of raised to believe that we have to always be strong and not show
Yep.
emotions and not talk about our problems, and it's going to make you weak. But actually, there's a lot of strength in saying I need help
Mm.
because you have to be willing to admit that I don't know what's going on, but I know that something in here feels off. So I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm
Mm.
going to go to the mechanic. I'm going to go to the person who can help me to get where I want to be because I don't know how to get there.
Love that. And the way that you went about it as well. I mean, we talked in the beginning about taking your pain and making it into your purpose. When I'm in a school, Lawrence, and we have building men meetings once a month in a school, and I'm meeting with about 100 boys. One of the things that I really impress upon them is the importance of being able to communicate and speak publicly. it's such a lost art now. And we talked a little bit about being on your phone, and everything is two dimensional, and we'll definitely get into the social media thing as well. But for young men to be able to look around the room and make eye contact,
Yeah.
speak at a calm cadence, project your voice, use hand gestures and facial expressions to communicate your message. It's such an important piece, and it will open up so many doors for them as they mature. So you started speaking at a young age. What was the thing that gave you the confidence to step into that role? It's an interesting thing, because it's almost like you have to do it first before you're confident in it. With anything, you have to take the risk to do it first. So what was it for you that you're like, all right, this is it, I'm going to do this?
There was a lot of things. One experience I had years before I decided to start public speaking was I met this guy named Wallow267. Long story short, he went to prison when he was like 16, got out when he was 32. Within a few years, became a multimillionaire.
Hmm.
And he talks about the fact that when he was in prison, he taught himself not only business, education, marketing. He goes into detail about all the things that he experienced growing up, his challenges, having to grow up in dangerous environments and changing his life. And I guess as a kid, that little experience there impressed on me this idea that you can share what you've been through and it can help somebody.
Hmm.
Then I saw other people like just general people like pastors who would talk about challenges that they went through and how they got through it, and just so many people who these little experiences stacked up and said, hey, I could try that too. Even if I'm not fully sure at the time what I was talking about, I knew enough
Hmm.
to try. And then also I understood that the thing that stops most people isn't lack of ability, it's the fear of what if. Like the fear of what if I fail, or what if people make fun of me, or what if they leave a hate comment. But we don't really think about
Right.
the fact that what if you succeed so far beyond your wildest expectations? And because I was 15, I kind of just inherently knew that if you do something for 10 years, so right now I'm 20, so I'm 5 years deep into this.
Hmm.
If you do something for 10 years and you become a master of it, at 25 years old, I'll be an absolute master at doing this. So I just hit the red button, started recording videos on my iPhone, and took it one day at a time.
Yep. I love that. And it's like you have to you have to start driving the car, and then the map will appear.
Yeah.
You have to take the leap of faith, and then the net's going to appear. And one thing, I don't know who to credit this quote to, but it's something along the lines of, in my life, I've had millions of problems, and most of them never happened, right? It's something
Yeah.
along those lines, that most of the things that happen in our life, like, we build up worst case scenario. What if this happens? What if that happens? But you were able to take that fear and use it as a motivator, right? My
Yeah.
brother used to say, "Feel the fear and do it anyway." As difficult things are coming up. So one of the things that you talk about a lot, Lawrence, is breaking limiting beliefs that we hold for ourselves. What do you think are the most common limiting beliefs, or the most common lies that young men are telling themselves today?
Mm, there are a lot of them.
Mm.
One of the first ones that come to my mind is I can't because no one in my family has.
Mm.
Another one would be if you don't look a certain way, dress a certain way, certain height, all that kind of stuff, then women aren't going to like you. That's one
Mm.
that we tell ourselves a lot. And the last one that's coming to my head right now is I is the fact that I can't because I don't know anybody who has done that.
Mm.
So think about someone who wants to become a doctor or an engineer or lawyer or something like that. Like they want to start a big career. I can't do that because no one in my family has gone to college. I can't start a business because no one in my family has. I can't achieve that goal or that thing I want because I'm not smart enough, or I'm not this enough, or I'm not that enough. We say this to ourselves, but we don't really look at the other side of how can I?
Right.
I'm actually writing a book on this concept where by changing our thoughts and changing our beliefs, we can change our life. Because your beliefs, like what you believe to be true, you will act out. And because you act out what you believe to be true, whatever you believe to be true will eventually happen.
Mm.
Like the belief that I can't get into a certain college because I'm not smart enough. When someone believes that, they start having the thoughts associated with that, taking actions associated
Mm.
with that, and their life becomes a reflection of not achieving the goal because deep down they believe that they
Right.
can't.
Yep.
And this happens regardless of what resources are actually available. Like we can look at people such as, are you a fan of UFC?
I am. Yeah.
You've heard of Francis Ngannou, right?
Yep.
So he grew up in Cameroon, which is a very poor country, and it's basically impossible to get out of it. You have to like hop borders and
Hmm.
escape the government and a whole bunch of things. And he grew up working in a sand mine. So as a child, he was shoveling sand. And not just regular bags of sand. This is hot, dry, concrete type of sand. He eventually escaped the country, barely speaks English, makes it to the UK, is homeless, works his way up through eating food out of trash cans, and now he is a world famous boxer.
Yeah.
Even though he did not have the finances, even though he hardly had the language, he believed some way, somehow, I can make this happen. And when we start to believe that some way, somehow, we can improve our life, whether it's as small as improving our grades or our confidence or whatever it is, some way, somehow, it will happen.
Yep. Agree with that. There was a guy that I've interviewed on the podcast more than once. His name is Akshay Nanavate. He wrote the book Fear Vaughn. I highly recommend people check out the podcast and that book as well. One of the things that he talks about, Lawrence, is he says, you are not your thoughts, you are not your feelings, you are not your experiences. You are the thinker of your thoughts, the feeler of your feelings, and the experiencer of your experiences, right? So it's really important to be able to separate that, especially when we're going through a challenging time. One thing that you talk about a lot is the idea of identity and authenticity. Authenticity is one of the character pillars in building men. So I want to dive into that a little bit and talk about, you've said knowing who you are can really solve a lot of the problems that you're experiencing in your life. So what does that really mean? And how does a young man begin to figure out when they're asking, like, who am I? What am I here for? What's the meaning of this whole thing?
Well, so on the note of knowing who you are, that is something that the only way you can find it out is you have to look at everything that you've been taught, everything you've known. And this isn't something that you just do one day and it clicks. It's kind of like peeling an infinite onion where there's these layers
Mm-hmm.
of layers of layers of your identity and asking yourself, okay, here's what I've been told to believe. I've been told to believe that because I come from a certain neighborhood or a certain environment or a certain country or whatever, that you can and cannot reach these levels in life. Do I want to agree to that? No. So I'm going to start believing that I can achieve that. And then you go layer by layer and start realizing, what did you see growing up and how did that influence the way you use your money, your relationships, your habits, the people you're around, the circumstances of your life? You have to spend enough time alone and getting to know yourself to start realizing who you are and who you're not. And one of the ways I did that was journaling. I have been journaling for the last 5 years. And by doing this, you start noticing patterns. Like, what do you usually think about? How do you treat other people? What are the results of your life? And you just look around and you see the results. And you ask yourself, For someone to keep getting this result over and over, what would they have to believe is true about themselves? And you start to understand these like invisible beliefs that you're not even aware of. Like the way that you treat your relationships is most likely the result of how you saw your family treating theirs. And until you become aware of who am I, you just live a life where you're being what you've been told and taught to be. Now, then you have to have the audacity to start being someone new, even when it feels weird. For me, it's wearing suits. Even when I was in high school, I loved wearing suits. I realized that because I said, what do I want to wear? And I just started trying things. I started trying new hobbies, new foods, new places. And it's like this spark goes off where you realize that this just feels so me. That's the only way I can explain it. And by knowing who you are and knowing what you're capable of and knowing your unique skill sets and talents and what makes you different, the whole idea of I can't do that because of where I'm from. Says who? Somebody else. Well, what do I say?
Right.
And of course, there's a certain healthy limit to this. Like, you don't want to be overly grandiose and think that you're the best thing on the face of the earth. But you have to just know who you are and what you're capable of.
Our young men are struggling. We see a lack of positive male role models. And in school, we're dealing with truancy. We're dealing with failing grades, behavioral issues. We're dealing with isolation, aggression. Students post-high school, we're dealing with an alarming suicide rate. We're dealing with poverty. We're dealing with incarceration. As a society, we recognize we have a problem. We've tried everything with limited to no success at all. So what's the answer? It's a foundational mentoring program. It's building men.
They really do show you a better way and a better path. Doing the right things when people aren't even looking, it shows a lot, and it shows who you are as a person.
Building men means a lot to me because it's somewhere where I can go and open up and talk about things that I don't talk to other people about. It taught me that talking is something, it's natural, it's something you're supposed to do, talking about your feelings.
Also giving me the guidance that not a lot of other kids have gotten, and it's also showed me how to become more of a leader since now I'm representing something, now I'm in a group.
Once a month, young men in the Building Men program come together for a full-day experience, an opportunity to connect, grow, and challenge themselves. These meetings go beyond the classroom, creating a space where they can share their wins and struggles, build brotherhood, and develop the leadership skills needed for success.
Building Men means to me is the steps in order for a boy to become a man. You have to go through adversity, hardships, challenges, everything in order to become a man.
I love how when I go there, I'm held accountable. If I say I want to start doing something one meeting, I either have to have it done or shown that I'm taking steps by the next meeting. It's a great program. A lot of kids should do more stuff like this because a lot of, especially boys and men don't have nobody they can talk to or they feel they can talk to. So having a closed, safe space feels great.
It impacted my mindset a lot. It helped me focus on my schoolwork more. It helped me communicate more to other people.
You know, he tells us real stories about his life, and that kind of touched me as a person because the same stuff that he's going through, I'm going through. And I was going through a difficult time, and we were both going through a difficult time, so him speaking out about it made me realize it's okay to speak out about my struggles as well.
A place where you could be your authentic self and feel like you won't be judged for it. A place that we've created a culture, an edifying culture for our young boys to level up and mature as young boys in this world.
Through hands-on activities and meaningful discussions, young men engage with 12 character pillars, from accountability and authenticity to resilience and self-discipline, building a foundation for lifelong leadership.
I got to meet the founder, Dennis, and he just seemed like a down-to-earth, cool person. He seemed like he knew us, He seemed like he knew what we were going through without us telling him what we were going through.
They have become a small community in itself that probably would never have happened if it wasn't for this program. If it wasn't for the Building Men program, I feel like I would not be at the level that I'm at right now in my life. Building Men has definitely changed my life. It has made me a better person, a better friend, a better son, a better counselor, a better mentor.
Overall, it's just been a great experience, and I look forward to it growing to bigger and better things.
That I feel this interconnected with like the staff, not only the male staff, but like everyone, and the kids. I'm able to feel much more connected than I ever thought I would be as an intern.
This is more than a program. This is a movement. It's about shaping strong, resilient leaders who will impact their schools, communities, and beyond. That's what Building Men is all about. Let's build the next generation of men who will lead, serve, and change the world. Like, why not me? Like, why not ask that question? And so often in life, Lawrence, what we'll do is what if the bad stuff?
Oh, yeah.
What if I don't get the job? What if this doesn't happen? What if she doesn't like me? Well, what if the good stuff? What if I do get it? What if she, I think we need to retrain our brain to be able to do that. And I think journaling is one of the key things. It was about 6 years ago or so, I started journaling. And I'd like to say I do it every day. It's not every single day. Almost every single day I'm journaling, and you definitely start to see patterns that are developing in things that you're thinking, and those things can lead into when you're speaking to someone about it, your therapist or whatever, you start to notice, okay, these are things that are coming up on a regular for me. When you're journaling, what do you have a specific prompt that gets you going? How do you start off? Are you just like, all right, I'm going to open up the book and brain dump for the next 5 or 10 minutes? What does that look like for you?
So I used to use prompts where I would ask myself the question of, what am I feeling right now and why? And then after that, why do you feel that about that? So I feel angry right now. Why? Because somebody stepped on my shoe earlier today. Well, why do you feel angry about that? Because they must have done it on purpose. And they're like, you start making up this scenario in your head. But journaling, you catch it and you realize, like, is that true though? Like, did they deliberately do that? Did they intentionally do that? No, they didn't. They apologized and said sorry. Oh, so they didn't even mean to do that. You're angry at a scenario in your own head. They're just, I heard of it yesterday. I can't remember how to pronounce the guy's name, but it was this Vietnamese monk who said something like, the first arrow is the situation that happens. The second arrow is our own thoughts about the situation. The fourth arrow, and on and on and on, are just arrows that we keep shooting at ourselves because we make up a story in our head. Now, other prompts that I've used in the past, I actually made a free ebook of 111 of them. If you don't mind, I can give it to your audience for free. It'll just be a link they download. Some of the prompts in there are things like, who did you have to be growing up to get the affection of your mom or dad? That was a quote by Tony Robbins. And when you start journaling and sit on that, you start realizing that, wait, that's why I've been a people pleaser all of my life. That's why I've been so hyper independent. That's why I've been so afraid to open up, because I grew up in a home environment where my feelings were invalidated. And that's the reason why I find myself in these relationships where people keep disrespecting me because of how I was raised when I was 5 years old. Other prompts are really positive things like, what are 5 things you love about yourself? Another one of them is an action telling people to go find a mirror, look yourself in the eye and say, I love you. And then write, how did that feel? You're like, oh, well, that felt kind of weird to stare at myself and say, I love me. Well, why is that weird? Why do you feel as though it's weird to say that? Because I was raised to always see other people as more important than me, and I have to make them all happy. So why do you feel bad about making yourself feel happy? And you start, journaling will make you become aware of everything.
Good,
you
bad, and
become
ugly.
aware of the light and the dark.
Yeah.
But you learn to accept the fact that if there is no dark, you don't know what light is.
I like that.
If you've never been sad, you can't be
Right.
happy, because sadness is the opposite of happiness. And we want all of the sunlight, but we don't want the moon.
Yeah, I enjoy the act of journaling as well, Lawrence, so much so that like the idea of just getting it out of your head, right? If not, there's this hamster wheel that your thoughts just stay in there and they rattle around, and it's like just the physical act of taking the pen and writing it down on a piece of paper, it just gets it out of your head, and then you could do something with it. The other thing it helps me do too is, especially if I'm perseverating over a thought, like, all right, it's usually something negative and gets stuck. I can at least say, okay, I'm going to write this down right now, and that's me dealing with it. It's an action that I'm taking to help myself get through it. So for the idea of journaling, I totally agree. That's one of the healthy habits that we talk about in Building Men, is being able to express what's going on in your head, getting it out onto a piece of paper, and then doing something with it. What are some of the other habits that helped you when you were going through a challenging time in your life? You talked about stacking some habits. What are the things that you were doing on a regular basis that help you like redefine who you are?
I would write down a list of things I wanted to do each day before I went to bed. So it could be as simple as brush my teeth. Because at the worst, something like me brushing my teeth felt like moving a mountain. And by having clarity on what am I trying to do, it made it easier to get to that win. Making your bed, eating, just stuff like that. Because you could start that simple. Start where you are. Or it could be something such as where I am now in life. It would be sending some emails, like sending 20 emails today. Or writing part of my book. Going to the gym. Fishing. These are all things that not only do they allow you to stack a win, but something like going to the gym, if you're angry and you're stressed out and you're like, I don't want to journal about it, I don't want to talk to somebody about it, I don't want to sit down and, count to 5, go to the gym, do some push-ups, do some squats, whatever you need to do, because now you are physically getting it out of your body. And it also releases like hormones that calm you down. So if you're angry and you go work out, you will feel calmer, or at the bare minimum, you'll feel tired and go take a nap and then wake up and realize it wasn't even that big of a problem.
And you don't ever regret when you go to the gym. No one leaves a gym and is like, oh, damn, I wish I would have spent the last hour and a half scrolling on my phone. Whenever you get to the gym, you always feel better about yourself afterwards. And so I'll use that as a segue into the idea around social media. One of the things that you talk about, Lawrence, is the noise that especially young men are seeing on social media about success, and a lot of that is fake. So what would you say to a young man who's really focusing in on that, and what should he be paying attention to instead of that?
I would say pay attention to what is your definition of success. Because for some people, their definition of success is indeed, I want to make millions of dollars. That's most people's idea of success. I want to have a lot of money, and that's no problem with that. Why do you want a lot of money? So I could buy a bunch of cool stuff. Why do you want a lot of cool stuff? So people look at me and they're like, oh my gosh, he's so amazing. I wish I would have not bullied him in high school. Well, why are you still holding on to that? And you peel back the layers and realize, like, okay, what you really want isn't money, is to feel important, which nothing's wrong with that. We just have to be honest with ourselves about what we really want. And then you have to find healthy ways of getting that. Other people's idea of success is, I want to move to the middle of Montana, buy a farm, have some cows, and be a farmer. Some people, that's genuinely their idea of success. They want to be a farmer. Some people, it's a wife, 3 kids, $70K a year, working at a tech startup. That's their idea of success. And if you look at someone else's idea of what they're pushing and saying, this is the one and only way, you must do this to be successful, you might get it, But if that's not your idea of success and it's not what you really want, you'll realize that there's not any fulfillment in that. Like there's not really any fulfillment in the cars and the money. It's you need to have a reason bigger than yourself. For me, that reason is uplifting young people, helping them to not feel how I felt. Other people, it's I want my family to be financially free. Other people, it is something like if let's just use a pastor as an example, it would be going around preaching the word of God. We need to have reasons bigger than just the shiny things. So that's something you're going to have to take some time to ask yourself, what do I consider success?
Right. You work in schools, you do the motivational speaking piece, and your story really helps motivate the next generation, Lawrence. And you're not that far removed out of high school, right? You said you're 20 years old, so
graduated like 2 years ago.
Right, so it's very fresh in your mind. What are the biggest challenges that you see facing, say, high school kids today? Like, what is the thing that comes up most frequently when you're talking to groups of young people?
Bullying and being mistreated for being authentic. So I'll use an example of myself.
Yeah.
The school I went to was about a mile from a lake, and I love fishing. So instead of going all the way back home and then all the way back to school and then having to go to school, back home, get my fishing stuff, bring it down to the lake, I would just take it with me to school and then go walk to the lake after. A lot of people looked at me weird for that. But I simply said, I mean, there's no rule saying I can't do this. So a lot of people get bullied for being them. And they feel the need to blend into the crowd. But I believe that everyone wasn't put here to blend in. Each and every single person in the world was meant to stand out in their own way and do their thing. Now, even deeper than the bullying aspect and people getting peer pressured and this culture of living fast and doing reckless things, another of the biggest issues a lot of people in high school are facing is the comparison. Now, this goes into social media, but it also goes into things like proms. When I was in high school, I had an hour-long conversation with my mom about this. How proms are really just glorified ways for people to show off things that they rented. No one's driving a BMW. That's rented. That's not real. Then you have people who feel like they have to be the coolest, most popular person. But no, just be you and let your people find you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think comparison is the thief of joy. And one of the things that we see so frequently now, like you mentioned on social media, is people are, especially young people, and I have 3 kids of my own, are looking at others' social channels and saying, I am not ... I don't have this. I don't look like this. But most of that is scripted, like you mentioned. It's not a real thing. And so the other thing that I tell people too, and I experienced some pervasive bullying as I was growing up, kids that were a couple years older than me. And I always thought it was me. I was the problem. Like, what was I doing wrong that these kids are targeting me and they're making my life a living hell? As I have gotten some space to it, what I started to recognize, Lawrence, is the problem lies with them. Like if you're doing that to another person, there's something missing in your life. There's a need that you're not getting met. There's a skill deficit there.
Yeah.
So I started, again, getting some space, and I think space provides clarity, right? I feel bad for the kids that were bullying me. I feel bad for what they were going through because they didn't have an outlet. They didn't have a channel. Even my father, like I look back and while I have a lot of animosity towards him, I feel bad that he was the way that he was. It's helped me gain a different perspective about it. So if you can go back in time, again, we're doing the whole time machine thing again, and you could have a conversation with 12-year-old Lawrence. Your mom is like, all right, we're going to see a therapist. We're going to see a counselor right now. And you were probably like, what's wrong with me? I can't believe this. There's bullying going on in school. If you could have a conversation with 12 or 13-year-old Lawrence, What would you tell him? Like, what advice would you give little you?
I would say that, oh, there's a lot of things I would say to him. Even if no one gives you a reason why they treated you how they treated you, you get to pick what you do with that. So for me, a big thing was even up until the age of like 17, because the last time me and my dad spoke, I was 17. He randomly texted me a few days before my high school graduation. And I remember thinking about that, where he never gave me a reason why he did any of the stuff he did. Even when I asked, he never gave a reason. And it confused me so much because people do things for reasons, but they will only tell it to you if they want to tell it to you. And I spent years of my life trying to figure out, why was people bullying me? Why did my dad hurt me and my siblings? Just why? And I was looking for all these answers, but I would tell my younger self that you don't get to control what happens to you, but you get to control what you do with it. Because all of those years I spent angry and frustrated and mad, I could have done a lot more productive things with that. All of the time when I was trying to find the answers of why people treated me that way, I could have used that in more healthy ways. And I don't regret any of the stuff I did necessarily, because it led me to where I am, and everything happened for a reason, and you get to decide the reason. You get to decide, like, are you going to be the hero of your story or the villain of it? It's like the analogy of Batman and Joker. Both of them went through some really crazy traumatic stuff. But Batman said, I'm going to heal the world that hurt me. And Joker decided, I'm going to hurt the world because it hurt me.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, it's like the idea, hurt people, right? It's pretty profound there as well. And I think just recognizing that, like being able to take a step back and really see yourself on that journey, right? Like you mentioned the superhero thing. The superheroes got to that place because they were dealing with some adversity, right? Like every single one of them had the backstory where something difficult happened and they made the decision, most of them, like, okay, I'm going to use this for something. I'm going to make my message into a message in the future. So even if you're struggling with something right now and you're listening, recognize, like, you're a part of the journey. You're part of this story. When you go back and you read the book of your life, this will be a turning point that you're going through. Like, how are you going to use your mindset to help you in that space? One of the things that I really believe in, if we talk about the hero's journey, a lot of it is there's the guide, the Yoda, the Dumbledore, the Obi-Wan, the person that really helps the person who's struggling, like the mentor. I believe so wholeheartedly in mentorship that I left being a principal to start a whole thing around the importance of mentorship. Did you have a role model? Did you have a mentor? Like, what was the community that you were growing up in? Did that play a role in who you became?
I would say some of the main mentors I had, other than just my therapist, were a lot of, like, I would find these online mentors, not like people that I paid, but I would seek out people's podcasts. I would seek out YouTube channels. I would seek out so many things. One that really, like, did so much development for me. The guy's name, like, his birth name is like Montrell Hill, but he goes by the name Soul Immortal. And he made these videos about, like, understanding things like self-control, spirituality. Just his original purpose of making these videos was because when he was 8 years old, his dad died. And, well, dad was murdered, actually. Oh. And all of that pain that he dealt with growing up without a father, having to navigate relationships, having to try and be a good role model to his children, workplace, all of that sort of stuff, was really traumatic for him. So he took that and said, I'm going to go on YouTube and start trying to help other young men not make the mistakes he did. Then I've had people who I've crossed paths with, like people who I can't remember their names or they never told me their name. Like when I'm out fishing, I've had tons of people come up and have hours long conversation with me. Just it always starts off with, oh, what are you trying to catch? And then we start talking about our life story and what we've been through and how we navigated things and things like relationships and marriages. And obviously I'm not married, but a lot of these guys are like 45 years old. So when you're ready, the mentor will appear.
Yeah.
Even if the mentor is somebody who you never asked their name.
Yep. It's interesting too. One thing that I thought about is just the visual when you're fishing, right? So as you're doing it, you're not standing across from the person. It's a shoulder to shoulder thing. It's like going for a drive or going for a walk. And what I'll typically say if I'm working with a parent who's having a difficult time communicating with their son, especially, I'll say, go for a walk, go for a drive. Like just that space of where you're both looking at the same vantage point. You're both without the face-to-face thing. It really helps people open up in that capacity. The other thing that I tell young men too, Lawrence, is the stats around boys that grow up without a positive male role model, especially, or mentor, and 1 in 3 boys do not have that, right? And that was me as I was growing up. You as well. You had to seek out mentorship. You had to seek out that role model. Boys that grow up without a positive male role model are 2 times more likely to commit a violent crime before they turn 18, and they're 4 times more likely to live in poverty after the age of 18. So when I tell boys this, I say, listen, if I'm speaking to you right now, if I'm speaking to you and you don't have that in your life, understand it's not your fault. It might not be your fault that that's the case, but now it's 100% your responsibility to take this knowledge and do something with it. So if you fall into the category and you don't have that positive male role model, seek someone out. Go find someone that can help you, because it will definitely impact the trajectory of your life. So for you, it might have been somebody that you're fishing with. It might have been someone that you found online, but you took that and you like, I need to do something with this. So if you're listening right now and that's the case, find that person, find that mentor in your life, find the guide that will help you get through those challenging situations. A couple more questions for you, Lawrence, before I let you go is, when you're sharing your story, and I think one of the things that resonates with me about your work is just the authenticity. Like, you're like, listen, this is what I went through. You're not trying to pull any punches. You're not trying to be someone you're not. You're saying, I went through a challenging situation. This is how I dealt with it. You might be going through something challenging as well, and know that there are people there that can assist you. So when people hear your story, what do you hope that they take away about who they can potentially become, no matter what they've been through?
I would say the main thing I want people to take away when they hear my story is understanding that you are not what you've been through. You're someone who went through some things, but those things don't have to define the rest of your life. And for me, that meant I had to not forgive in the sense of let him back into my life, because I completely closed that door. I realized, okay, that's not changing. We're just going to cut that. But I had to forgive my dad for everything he did, because it's like holding on to a burning metal rod. The longer you hold on to that anger and that past and that like suffering and label yourself as that, the more it burns. And we kind of get addicted to the pain because it's all we've known for so long. But I want people to know that that doesn't have to define you for the rest of your life. It's a thing that happened, but you can decide, despite my circumstances, despite maybe coming from a rough neighborhood, despite maybe you might be an orphan or you went through something traumatic, despite all of that, who do I want to be? What do I want? And dream as high as your mind can go. If you want to live in the middle of nowhere on a farm, figure out, how can I do that? What do I need to do? What kind of belief do I need to have about myself? how can I do that? Just dream what's possible for you. Because even if you think that, oh, there's no way I could do that, you can find somebody who's done it. You can find somebody who has done it and done it with less resources. So,
and if there is no one that, is in that specific space, then blaze the trail. You be the one because someone has to be the first to do everything. I love what you said too about, especially growing in a spot where holding the rod that's burning your hands, right? I also think about, it's like, getting bit by a venomous snake, and the snake slithers away, and like, oh man, like I got poison running through my veins right now. You don't chase the snake down to go, kill the snake. You go get help. The same thing when someone wrongs you in your life, instead of trying to get retribution, go get the help that you need. Go take care of yourself and be the best you that you can possibly be. So before I ask my last question to you, Lawrence, tell us where we can find you. How do we get in touch with you? Where do we find what you're doing?
Oh, I'm very easy to find. You can just search Lawrence C. Harris into Google and everything there. My Instagram, my TikTok, YouTube, my website. If you want to email me about speaking events, coming at your school, anything like that, my email address is also literally my name, Lawrence@lawrencecharris.com. My website has a little button that says book me. I'm very easy to find.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll share all that information in the show notes on the podcast. So please reach out to Lawrence, especially if you're in a space where you need someone to motivate in a speaking capacity, some of the students in your school as well. Before I ask the last question, real quick, our sponsors: Finish the Race Apparel, FTRapparel.com. That's where you can get all things building men. Become Stronger Industries is become-stronger.com. They are the makers of handmade steel maces, hammers, and some other really badass equipment. And then finally, the charity that we started in honor of my brother Anthony is Stay in the Fight. The website is stayinthefight.am. We have a big charity golf event coming up on September 22nd. You can find all that information there. And basically what we do in the charity is we're collecting resources to provide free therapy and counseling to those who need it and do not have the resources to be able to afford counseling. So please reach out and see if there's anything you could do, either support the charity or if we can support you. So the last question I need to ask you, Lawrence, is if someone's listening to this podcast, they fell in love with you over the last hour or so, listening to your story, they press pause on the podcast, and there's one thing that they can do that will really change the trajectory of their life. What's that one thing?
I would say the one thing is jump. So what I mean by that is, if you want to achieve something, you want to improve your confidence, you want to start a business, you want to improve your grades, you want to ask that girl out, just jump, go for it. Because you realize that the what ifs, all the things that we start spiraling and make up in our head, once you take that leap of faith and you jump, now you're in the game. And then you find out. Now you see, okay, maybe that worked, maybe it didn't. But now you have a little bit more confidence and faith in yourself. And over time, building up that faith in yourself that I can try, I can go for it. You become less afraid in all other areas of life because you have experience under your belt.
Awesome. That's the first time that I've gotten that response on the podcast when I asked that question, over 200 times. So I really appreciate it. Lawrence C. Harris, thank you, my man. It was really a pleasure getting to know you today. I would love to have you back on, and I just keep in touch with you over the experience. Again, you're only 2 years out of high school, and you're already starting to blaze this trail. So I'm a big fan of what you're doing, and if there's anything that I can do to support you on that journey, please don't hesitate to reach out. Really appreciate meeting you today, having you on the podcast. To the audience, go one step further than you thought you can go. We'll see you next time on Building Men.